talking about. The amazing thing is, and I've seen it many times, how a child, in spite of what their dad or their mom's doing, they want to be with them.
Right.
You think that they would want to get away from that. If they're screaming and drug use and alcohol and stuff, they still want to be there. Like you said, they're just, they're just happy. They're not really happy, but they're content enough because that's their dad and their mom to just kind of put that aside because they are with their mom and dad. That's more important than what they're having to go through. And they suffer through those things just to mom and dad.
Yeah. I've been so many, go ahead, Betty.
It's not only that, it doesn't matter how good a grandparent is for that child. You can never replace the love of the mother and the dad.
I've been in so many houses on calls, and I know Angie, she done social work for years, so she's been in there too. But you'll go in these houses, and these children are abused. They're living in filth. They have nothing to eat. They have nothing to wear. I mean, you wouldn't even sit down in their house. And when you try to take those children out for their best, it's a fight, ain't it? I mean, they'll kick and scream, run and hide. They'll do everything because they still have that desire to be with their parents, no matter how they got nothing. And
Little later on, she, we picture says, like you said, you gotta watch what you say within their. We were saying something about her daddy or something the other day. I was talking about him or something. It was kind of negative, but boy, she stood up for her daddy. That's my daddy. No, you don't do that. She sticks up for him.
yeah.
They live. They're sensible to their parents.
And I've seen a lot of times, you don't know how long she'll hear that and hold that against you.
Yeah.
Good.
That's right.
Good. It says, talking about the children glory in the love of their father. So love is committed. Love is tenuous and tough, but love is also very tender. It talks about, it says, if you want to know whether or not a man should be tender and compassionate, look at Jesus Christ, where to be like him.
Yeah.
And the fathers should love their children and set a goal early in their children's life to see them come to know Jesus Christ as personal Savior. This goal should be expressed foremost by praying for their salvation.
Yeah.
Children should glory in the leadership and love of their fathers.
I think the way we feel about your father has a lot to do with the way we feel about God. The relationships are parallel until you get old enough to see the difference. I was taught from the time I was born to hate my father, my earthly father. And for the longest time, I had a horrible relationship with God. I couldn't understand how love meant. I couldn't accept that love fully. And I still have a hard time realizing the worry of it in many ways. Because of the way I was brought up. I was taught my father hated me and I was to hate him. And I had a stepfather that abused me. And therefore I hated him. And it's hard to realize God's love.
Yeah.
Every man in your life has abused or hated. And you learn to abuse and hate back.
You're like me, we come from broken homes. And
Very good.
I can remember my mother badmouthing my dad
All the time.
a lot. And
And it's hard. It's hard when you grow up that way.
I look back, a lot of times that he wasn't there, it was because of her.
Yeah.
And
When I found out that was the reason why my father wasn't there, was because of my mother. I learned to hate my mother too.
Yeah.
it causes resentment there.
Yeah.
And
And it's hard to love God. Did you find it was hard to realize God's love?
yeah.
It took a long time to realize God's love.
We should, no matter what our relationship, if your home's broken, instead of discouraging and those, I'm telling you from firsthand.
You have to, no matter what's happened in your childhood's, in your children's lives, and in the lives of the father or the mother that sired your child, you can't badmouth that parent.
No, and you actually need to
You have to.
encourage that
Yes,
relationship.
you have to. encourage
Because
them.
you're not together with them anyway, so instead of discouraging it, you need to encourage it, because you don't realize at the time what it does to the children. I heard my mom say, well, I'm gonna have your dad put in jail if he don't pay the child support. I mean, yeah, he needs to pay child support. That's the only one you do to jail.
No.
That's just the love we have for our fathers.
This is a hard lesson to.
Yeah. We have a world of confused children today, it says, because they do not know their dad's love. And like I said, so many grandparents are raising their children, or their grandchildren today. And I was, that ain't the ideal situation, but I was blessed to have my grandparents. And, they raised me in a way I was supposed to be. They didn't go to church. That was one of the bad things. They didn't go to church, but they encouraged me to go.
Yeah.
So I'd always catch the bus and go to our church, or people that our friends of our family would take me. But I was thinking when I was reading some of this, there's so many kids that don't even have the grandparents, and they're passed from this person to that person, and then they feel like nobody loves them.
Hey, uncles and aunts.
Yeah. But ever since I started this lesson, everything points to the fathers and the husbands in the house. And like we said when we began, said mothers are mentioned 363 times, but fathers are mentioned over 1,300 times in the Bible. And that alone are to send a big message. And like I said, I am not prepared for today like I should have been, and I apologize. It is a short lesson today. It talks about children glorying in the loyalty of their fathers. I look at that, if you know your father is loyal to the Lord, but not just the Lord. What if your father ain't loyal to his wife, your mother? That can affect the attitude of the children. It says, fathers must also be loyal to their wives and children. In the world, there is much temptation for men to be unfaithful. Proverbs 6:26 says, that adultery brings a man to a piece of bread. Children should be able to glory in their father's loyalty to his family. And it says, fathers should also be loyal to the church. Loyalty is more than attendance. It is an attitude. Fathers should faithfully take the family to church and be loyal to the pastor and church workers in their conversations. Determined to be a father who is loyal to Christ in your family and to the church. How many of you in here could, this is a hard question to ask, or to answer a lot of times, but if your children are not in church right now, how many of you can look back and say, that's my fault?
It is my fault.
When Jeremy was little, I didn't take him to church like I should. He wasn't. Reed's a different story. Reed's, we've raised Reed in church. We're at church somewhere. If we're not here, we're somewhere in church, unless we're out of town or something. But I look at Jeremy's life, and he's not where he's supposed to be. And I say this all: the blood of your children are on your hands.
Yeah.
And I look at some of these people. Larry's got a close friend, was a next door neighbor to her. he was married, had a little boy. They had a church radio program. He had his own, some type of church, God, what was it? Like a gospel, something, talk show type on local radio. And he left his wife and child for a man. And he turned to homosexuality. And now his son, who's 16 years old, and he spends time with his son, and I just find that very disturbing. This son has to go in and live in an environment like that with his father, and because he loves his father too, what his father's teaching him is okay to him. And he's 16, I believe, because I just saw you guys last, but they had a picture of him going to the prom the other night. But he was with a girl, but he had a rainbow tie. We was looking at that, it's like, I wonder if that's because of his dad, but it was a rainbow tie. It makes me angry when I see parents like that, because here's the thing, he's done instilled this, it's all right in his child. Now what if he gets saved and he turns from his homosexual lifestyle, he gets saved, he knows it's wrong, but he can't ever touch that child never, and this child goes down this path. To me,
Yeah.
if that child dies and goes to hell, it's directly because of his father.
Well, you put your children too, like him, I feel, the kids get put in the spot, that's their parent, and you want to be with them, you want to love them, and you do, but, I would imagine, and I've heard some kids that their parents have turned that way, or are that way now, that, they love them, and then they're around that so much, they kind of get conditioned to it, that they don't, they accept it, and then therefore they accept it as moral, I guess, or
Yeah.
because they want to, because I guess it makes them feel better, because it's a parent, I don't know, but it's just being pushed, and it's just everywhere, and then, homosexuality is not the only issue, there's everything else, but it's just sad what kids, like you said, I've got a friend who, her choices in men aren't the best, and she's had kids out of wedlock, and she's never married any of them, and all she does is cry about their daddies. They're just, trying their kids. She's raising them by herself. But and those girls cling to any guy that she's with, because they just want that daddy, I'm sure. They want that man figure in their life, and it's sad, of what they're going to be facing. That's just everywhere.
I feel fortunate. When I'd go visit my dad, like I said, he would use marijuana in front of me, But the woman he lived with, he wasn't married, but she had a son. Right next door was her sister and her kids, and there was three of those, so 4 of them all together. And everybody there lived such a wild lifestyle. Even the kids, I can remember when I guess the earliest I remember was about 8. But I remember when we went over there, you could just run around wherever you wanted to do and do whatever you wanted to do. And these boys were wild as a bug. And they were. And when I went over, I lived very strict. I had a lot of rules on me from my grandparents. I had chores to do. I had things to do. But I could go over there and I could just run with these boys. But I knew my grandfather had instilled in me right and wrong. And no matter what these boys done, I was with them. But I never would partake in nothing. And I'm talking about at 8 years old. So I look back now and I'm thinking, because back then, when they do stuff, I knew it was wrong, I would not. But, I look back now, I didn't have a trouble with that. I guess because I had been trained and raised to be honest and not do this stuff. I knew it was wrong. But I look back now and I'm thinking, man, it's 1,000 wonders that I didn't get involved in some of the stuff that they were doing. And if I had, guess whose fault that was? That was my dad's fault. For the lifestyle that I was exposed to when I was with him.